The Volquest positional previews roll on. We're talking about the offensive line.
Hold on. Let me host this one for you because this is your group. You've been on the offensive line train. In all seriousness, not joking, you've been talking about the offensive line since for months about this group. So I'm just gonna do this a little different. We'll just keep rolling here. I'm gonna do this a little different. Why do you like this group? And talk to me about. Let's start at tackle. What is it about this offensive line group at tackle you really like?
I really believe that year 2 for Lance Hurd is going to be different. I think he's lost a dramatic amount of weight. In talking to him, he says all the right things, but then when you hear his story about him losing his grandfather a year ago, never having been hurt, never missed a game for being hurt, all of a sudden he got hurt, with the ankle, missed those games early in the year. He heard all the chatter out there from media like me or the fans or whatever, and then he got hurt again later in the year and pushed through. And he goes, I didn't feel like I could miss anymore. And so I think he's got a renewed focus. I've seen him in here working out a handful of times in the complex, and he looks dramatically better. He looks like he's in tip-top shape heading into fall camp. And then I just love David Sanders' upside. He's shown he can put on the weight. He's over 300 pounds now. That's something that was the big question mark, right? Because he looks pretty, but he needed to put on the weight for an offensive lineman to play in this league. I think that's there, and I think David Sanders has the it factor. So I think the tackle position, they're going to be better than they were a year ago, where they, were rotating in, John Campbell, who, was a liability at times, and then Dane Davis, who's a former walk-on, and Dane gave you everything you got. But I mean, the talent has went up at that position.
Yeah, I think David Sanders is interesting. You mentioned the it factor. I think part of that it factor is it's hard to find guys who are as driven as he is, and he knows there's pressure on him to play because he was highly sought after. There's NIL, there's all those things involved there. He seems comfortable with the fact that there's an expectation for him to be the guy right out of the gate.
Well, he has an expectation.
Yeah, that's the it factor that you're talking about. What he's done in a short period of time here physically is pretty impressive. I think the question for that group, with Larry Johnson being gone, who is your third tackle?
For me, it's Jesse Perry. I think he's going to be that Dane Davis guy that swings a lot. He may be at guard, he may be at center, he may be at tackle. I just think that ultimately he's going to play a lot when guys come in and out. I'm not sure he'll start again. He has a chance to win a guard spot in fall camp. Maybe he does. But I think when things go down, it's going to be much easier to go, hey, Jesse, I know you're playing left guard, but go play right tackle and shift somebody else to guard, right? I think he's going to be the guy that kind of swings around for Glenn Ellerby and company.
How big of an X factor has Bennett Warren
at the tackle part? I think he's getting there. I think he can be that number 3 tackle. I certainly do. I think he can be that number 3 tackle by the end of fall camp. But I think as we start fall camp, it's Jesse Perry is who I would pick. But again, Bennett Warren made strides in spring. How much more can he improve going into fall camp? Because he as much as David Sanders or anybody else, looks the part, right? I mean, he's as big a mountain as any of them.
Yeah, that whole group looks good. I mean, they've got length, they've got every girth, they got everything you're looking for. Wendell Moyes, your left guard. I think we all agree that that's where it's at. We've talked for multiple years about who is the heir apparent to Cooper Mays at center. Now there is no talk about who's the heir apparent. You've got to find a center. Where do you think they are at that position?
Well, I mean, William Satterwhite, to me, had the crack in spring. I think he left the door cracked open. I don't think that it's a lock that he's going to be Tennessee string center. I think he certainly still can win the job. But I think, Sam Pendleton can win the job. Jesse Perry could win the job.
Could Max Anderson be a factor
in there? Potentially. I think he could be. I think the biggest question mark is not even center as much as it is right guard.
But don't you have to know who your center is before you figure out the right guard competition?
Yeah, potentially, because I think ultimately that could dictate, whether if it's Sam Pendleton, all of a sudden the right guard spot's going to get shifted into, Sham Umarov, Jesse Perry, and that. If it's William Satterwhite or Max Anderson, then Pendleton's now battling out for the right guard spot. So good news for Pendleton, he's battling for 2 spots. Most of the other guys are battling for 1.
They have competition there, though. And they have, and it's interesting. They have youth who's never played. They have some who played very sparingly, and then you have Pendleton as an X factor who has played at a different place but is learning in a new offense. That's going to be a pretty fascinating, to me, competition when you talk about trying and figuring out your best 5. I think you feel good about 3. Where are you with those other 2 spots, center and right guard? That's going to be a real challenge or a real interesting battle for Glenn Ellerby this fall.
I agree. Sham had a really good spring, really started to come on. I think the staff got excited to see his growth. Jesse Perry, same thing. I'm always one that you ask the defensive line coach, who does his guys not want to go
That's
against?
it's a great question.
And I would tell you, Rodney Garner is a huge fan of Jesse Perry.
Yeah.
Huge fan of Jesse Perry. Now, again, I think Jesse Perry's going to go out there and earn it, go out there and win it. But it all goes back to what you just said a second ago. Who's your center? Because I think there's a trickle down after that.
Well, and the interesting thing about Jesse Perry is, can you get him far enough along at tackle to be your third tackle, and he can still go be the guard, or does he have to focus on tackle to be the third guy?
Are you robbing Peter to pay Paul for him?
Right. Does it hurt his chances at guard if he's your third tackle, having to learn both sides, and maybe he doesn't have to learn both sides?
Which goes back to Bennett Warren. What kind of step does he take?
Yeah.
What kind of summer has he had? Is he ready to take that big step when the calendar turns to August?
A lot of new faces, a lot of good-looking bodies, a lot of interesting competitions, and a lot of stress for Glenn Ellerby as he tries to find his best five, right?
First time in a long time, there's not a maze on the offensive line. Very odd.
Yeah, there's not a maze there, and
Camp will be here quick enough, though.
And there's a lot of unknowns with answers. They just have to figure out what those answers are. That'll be a big part of this offense's development in fall camp. He's Austin Price. I'm Brent Hubbs.